The door to the grand old Victorian house in suburban Chicago swung open with a force that rattled the family portraits on the walls. Miles Thompson, the family's golden boy, stood there, his hand intertwined with another man's, a rainbow flag draped over his shoulders like a cape of defiance. The room fell silent as forks clattered against plates, and his father's face turned from jovial red to ashen white in an instant. Miles had always been the one they relied on, the successful lawyer in his mid-30s, the one who paid for his sister's college tuition, bailed out his brother's failing business, and even covered the mortgage when his parents hit hard times after the recession. But now, as he stepped inside with Jamie by his side, introducing him as my partner, the air thickened with unspoken accusations. His mother, Evelyn, clutched her pearl necklace, her eyes wide with a mix of shock and betrayal, while his father, Richard, rose slowly from the head of the table, his voice booming. "What the hell is this, Miles? You bring this stranger into our home on our anniversary." The reunion was meant to celebrate Richard and Evelyn's 40th wedding milestone, a gathering of extended family from across the Midwest. Aunts, uncles, cousins, all conservative folks rooted in traditional values, churchgoers who quoted Bible verses at every holiday. Miles had planned this moment for months, rehearsing in front of mirrors, psyching himself up with therapy sessions. He knew the risks. He'd seen how his cousin Lisa was shunned for divorcing her abusive husband. But Jamie, with his quiet strength as a high school teacher, had convinced him it was time. "You can't hide forever," Jamie had said, holding him through sleepless nights. Yet as the murmurs started, "Is he serious? This must be a joke," Miles felt the first crack in his resolve. Richard pulled Miles aside into the study, the room lined with bookshelves of legal tomes that Miles himself had gifted. "Son, you've always been the one we could count on. The straight-A student, the star athlete, the one who made partner at the firm before 35. And now this? You're throwing it all away for what? Some phase?" Miles's heart pounded. He wanted to scream that it wasn't a phase, that he'd known since he was 15, sneaking glances at boys in the locker room while pretending to date girls to fit in. But the words stuck. Instead, he said, "Dad, this is who I am. Jamie makes me happy. Isn't that what matters?" Evelyn joined them, her face streaked with tears. "Miles, think about your siblings. Your brother Mark is struggling. He needs your support. And Sarah, she's getting married next year. What will people say? Our church community. They'll turn their backs." The pressure was immense, a lifetime of expectations crashing down. Miles had been the family's bank, yes, but also their moral compass, the one who mediated fights and kept secrets. Now, by revealing his own, he was unraveling the fragile web that held them together. As the evening wore on, the confrontations escalated. Uncle Bob, a retired cop with a gruff demeanor, cornered Jamie in the kitchen. "You put him up to this? Turning a good man like Miles into whatever this is?" Jamie, ever calm, replied, "Love isn't about turning someone. It's about accepting them." But Miles overheard and felt a surge of protectiveness, stepping in to defend his partner. The argument spilled back into the dining room, voices rising like a storm. Cousin Emily, the liberal outlier in the family, whispered her support to Miles, but even she admitted, "This might cost you everything." By midnight, half the family had left early, citing headaches or early flights. Richard issued an ultimatum. "If you choose this path, don't expect our support anymore. We've given you everything. Now you're spitting in our faces." Miles lay awake that night in his childhood bedroom, Jamie asleep beside him, wondering if the freedom he'd chased was worth the isolation brewing. The next morning, the real fallout began. Mark called, furious. "Bro, I needed that loan you promised for my shop, but now Dad says you're cut off and so am I by association." "Thanks a lot," Sarah texted. "How could you do this to Mom and Dad on their anniversary? Selfish." Miles's firm, a prestigious downtown Chicago outfit, prided itself on progressive values. But even there, whispers started. A senior partner pulled him aside. "Miles, we're behind you personally, but clients, some are old school. Just be discreet. The societal pressure mounted. Friends from his straight-passing life drifted away, while his LGBTQ plus support group urged him to stand firm. But the internal conflict tore at him. Guilt for hurting his family, anger at their rejection, and a deep-seated fear that maybe he had chosen wrong. Jamie, sensing Miles's turmoil, suggested therapy together. "We knew this wouldn't be easy," he said during their first session. The therapist nodded. "Coming out is a process, not an event. The real work is navigating the aftermath." Miles nodded, but inside, doubts festered. Had he been too hasty? Could he have eased them into it? As weeks turned to months, the family's silence grew deafening, punctuated only by Evelyn's occasional tearful calls begging him to come back to normal. One evening, Miles received an email from Richard, a formal notice revoking his access to the family trust fund he'd contributed to heavily. "You've made your choice," it read. The betrayal stung like a slap. Miles had poured thousands into that fund, thinking it secured their future. Now it was weaponized against him. He confided in Jamie, "They're punishing me for loving you." Jamie held him, but Miles couldn't shake the resentment building. Not just toward his family, but toward the society that forced such choices. The tension peaked at a family intervention orchestrated by Mark and Sarah. They ambushed Miles at a neutral coffee shop, pleading, "Think about Grandma. She's 85. This could kill her." Miles fired back, "Hiding who I am was killing me." The meeting ended in shouts, with Mark storming out, vowing to cut ties. That night, Miles broke down, questioning if his happiness was worth fracturing the only family he'd known. Months passed, and the rift widened into a chasm. Miles threw himself into work, taking on pro bono cases for LGBTQ plus youth, channeling his pain into purpose. But at home, the strain showed. Jamie noticed the late nights, the distant stares. "You're carrying this alone," he said one evening over dinner in their cozy Lakeview apartment. Miles sighed. "I have to. They're my family." Jamie's eyes softened. "We're building our own now." Yet the societal backlash crept in unexpectedly. At a neighborhood block party, old friends averted their eyes, whispering about that gay couple. Miles's promotion at the firm stalled. Rumors swirled that conservative clients threatened to pull out. He confronted his boss. "Is this because of who I am?" The response was evasive. "It's business, Miles. Image matters." The moral dilemma gnawed at him. Should he tone it down for career stability or fight louder? Evelyn reached out sporadically, her calls laced with guilt-tripping. "Your father isn't sleeping. He's worried about you." Miles wanted to believe it was concern, not control. During one call, she confessed, "I always suspected, but I prayed it away." The admission hit hard. His mother's denial had been a shield for her own fears. Miles hung up, tears streaming, realizing the generational trauma at play. His parents raised in an era where conformity was survival. Mark's business teetered on bankruptcy without Miles's financial crutch. Desperate, Mark showed up unannounced at Miles's office, hat in hand. "I need help, man. Just a loan. Dad doesn't have to know." Miles hesitated. Helping would mean enabling the family's rejection. "Mark, I can't keep being the fixer while you all pretend I don't exist." Mark exploded. "Pretend? You're the one who changed everything." The betrayal deepened. Miles had always been the giver, now labeled the destroyer. Sarah's wedding approached, and the invitation arrived with a note. "Family only. No plus ones." The exclusion was a knife twist. Miles debated attending alone, sacrificing Jamie for a semblance of peace. Jamie urged against it. "Don't diminish us." In the end, Miles RSVP'd no, sending a gift instead. Sarah called, furious. "You're boycotting my wedding? Over him." Miles replied calmly, "It's not a boycott. It's self-respect." The call ended with Sarah in tears, accusing him of selfishness. Internally, Miles wrestled with doubt. Late nights, he'd scroll through old family photos, reminiscing about carefree holidays. Was it worth it? He'd ask Jamie. Jamie, ever supportive, shared his own story. coming out in college, losing friends but gaining authenticity. The pain fades. The freedom doesn't. But Miles's awakening came slowly, through small victories like joining a pride march, feeling community for the first time. A turning point arrived when Richard suffered a minor heart attack. Evelyn called Miles in panic. "He needs you." Miles rushed to the hospital, Jamie waiting in the car. Inside, Richard looked frail, hooked to machines. "Son," he whispered, "I don't understand, but I don't want to lose you." It was a crack in the armor, but not an apology. Miles held his hand, conflicted, forgiveness versus accountability. Post-hospital, family therapy was suggested. The first session was explosive. Richard defended his stance. "I raised you right. This isn't what I envisioned." Evelyn admitted societal fears. "What will the neighbors say?" Mark and Sarah piled on, blaming Miles for the stress on their father. Miles countered, "My identity isn't a choice. Your reaction is." The therapist mediated, highlighting generational divides and unspoken expectations. As sessions continued, layers peeled back. Richard revealed his own suppressed dreams, wanting to be an artist but choosing law for stability, projecting that onto Miles. "I sacrificed for you," he said. Miles replied, "And I've sacrificed my truth for you all." The confrontations were raw, exposing hypocrisies. Mark's hidden gambling addiction, Sarah's secret affair, Miles's coming out had unwittingly forced a family reckoning. Jamie faced his own trials. His school administration, upon learning of his relationship, subtly discriminated, assigning extra duties, overlooking promotions. "It's not overt," he told Miles, "but it's there." Miles felt guilty. "I dragged you into this." Jamie shook his head. "We face it together." Their bond strengthened amid adversity, but the cost was evident in Jamie's weary eyes. One night, after a heated therapy session, Miles received an anonymous letter. "Faggots like you ruin families. Stay away." The hate mail shook him, a stark reminder of societal bigotry. He reported it, but the police dismissed it as harmless. The incident fueled his resolve. He volunteered at a local LGBTQ+ center, mentoring youth facing similar struggles. The family's fragile progress shattered when Uncle Bob outed Miles on social media, posting a rant about family values destroyed. Comments flooded in, supportive from strangers, vitriolic from kin. Richard disavowed it, but the damage was done. Miles's firm lost a major client, citing reputational risk. The professional blow forced Miles to consider switching firms, uprooting his life further. In quiet moments, Miles pondered the ethical quandaries. Was hiding ethical if it preserved peace? Or was authenticity a moral imperative, regardless of fallout? Jamie's unwavering support anchored him, but the cumulative toll weighed heavy. As the anniversary of the reunion approached, tensions simmered to a boil. Miles and Jamie attended their first Pride event as a couple, surrounded by allies, but Miles couldn't shake the paranoia, scanning crowds for familiar faces. Back home, Evelyn invited him for a private lunch. "Just us," she said. At the diner, she slid over a photo album, pages filled with Miles's achievements. "I miss my boy," she wept. Miles softened. "I'm still here, Mom. Just whole." She nodded, whispering, "Your father is trying, but it's hard." Richard's trying manifested in awkward attempts. A book on LGBTQ+ issues left on Miles's doorstep, and signed. But progress halted when Mark relapsed into gambling, blaming family stress. He confronted Miles. "If you'd stayed in the closet, none of this would have happened." Miles refused aid. "Get help, not handouts." The decision alienated Sarah, who sided with Mark. Blood over everything. Societal pressures amplified through media. A local news story on family divisions over LGBTQ+ rights featured anonymized quotes suspiciously like Richard's. Miles suspected Uncle Bob's handiwork. The exposure brought unwanted attention. Reporters hounded him, turning personal pain public. Jamie worried, "This could endanger us." Indeed, slashed tires on their car followed, with no proof but plenty of suspicion. In therapy, breakthroughs emerged. Richard admitted fear. I worry you'll face hate. Like in the old days. Miles shared his own fears of rejection, isolation. Evelyn confessed, enabling the family's dependency on Miles. We leaned too hard. Mark and Sarah grudgingly acknowledged their entitlements. But mending required action. Richard suggested a family vacation to rebuild. The trip to a cabin in Wisconsin was disastrous. Old habits resurfaced, subtle digs at Jamie, exclusionary jokes. Miles snapped during a hike. If you can't accept us, why invite? Richard retorted. Acceptance takes time. The argument escalated, with Mark defending their father. You're pushing too fast. Jamie, usually silent, interjected. Respect isn't negotiable. The group returned early, bonds strained further. Miles's career hit rock bottom when a promotion went to a less qualified colleague. Politics, his boss admitted off-record. Frustrated, Miles networked with LGBTQ plus friendly firms, landing interviews. But the move meant relocating to New York, uprooting Jamie's life. Are you sure? Miles asked. Jamie smiled. For us, yes. The decision weighed heavy, trading familiarity for freedom. Family secrets unraveled more. Sarah confided in Miles. I'm pregnant, but not with my fiancés. The affair she'd hidden mirrored Miles's secrecy. I get it now, she said. Miles advised honesty. Lies destroy. She came clean, sparking her own family storm. Mark, inspired or shamed, entered rehab. The domino effect of Miles's courage rippled, forcing growth. Yet betrayals lingered. Richard altered his will, reducing Miles's inheritance until things stabilize. The news, leaked by Mark, felt like punishment. Miles confronted him. Money over love? Richard defended. It's protection. The moral clash intensified. Family loyalty versus conditional acceptance. Jamie proposed during a quiet dinner. Through all this, you're my rock. Miles accepted, tears of joy mixing with sorrow. Planning the wedding highlighted divides. Invitations to family went unanswered initially. Evelyn pushed Richard to attend, or lose him forever. As preparations unfolded, societal acceptance varied. Friends rallied, but hate mail persisted. A community center bombing in the news heightened fears. Miles volunteered more, turning pain into advocacy. This isn't just our fight, he told Jamie. The wedding day loomed, a small affair in a botanical garden. Richard showed up alone, stiff but present. I'm here, he said gruffly. Evelyn hugged Miles. Proud of you. Mark and Sarah arrived late, offering tentative congratulations. The ceremony was emotional, vows promising endurance amid adversity. Post-wedding, the family gathered awkwardly. Richard toasted to new beginnings, but undercurrents remained. Unresolved resentments, fragile truces. Miles wondered if true acceptance would ever come. Honeymoon in Hawaii brought respite, but reality crashed upon return. Miles's new job in New York meant packing up life in Chicago. Jamie quit his teaching position, excited yet anxious. Starting over, he mused. The move symbolized shedding old skins, but goodbyes were bittersweet. Evelyn cried at the airport. Visit often. Richard shook hands firmly. Be safe. In the Big Apple, anonymity liberated them. Miles thrived at the inclusive firm handling high-profile civil rights cases. Jamie pursued a master's in education, focusing on inclusive curricula. Their circle expanded, queer friends, supportive colleagues. But distance from family bred new guilt. Calls grew infrequent. Excuses mounted. A crisis pulled them back. Grandma's passing. The funeral in Chicago reunited everyone. Whispers about Miles and Jamie echoed in the church. Richard eulogized her traditional values, glancing at Miles meaningfully. At the wake, Uncle Bob confronted. She'd be ashamed. Miles retorted. She loved unconditionally, unlike some. The exchange reignited old flames. Inheritance disputes arose. Grandmas were left equal shares, but Richard contested Miles's portion, citing lifestyle concerns. The betrayal was profound. Miles lawyered up. "This is discrimination," his attorney argued. Court dates loomed, turning family into adversaries. Mark sided with Richard. "It's about tradition." Sarah wavered, torn. The legal battle exposed ugliness. Depositions revealed Richard's homophobic emails. Evelyn's pleas for reconciliation ignored. Miles testified, voice steady. "My orientation doesn't diminish my worth." Media caught wind, framing it as a modern family drama. Public support poured in, but so did hate. Jamie stood by, but the stress strained their marriage. Arguments over strategy, nights of silence. Evelyn cracked under pressure, testifying for Miles. "He's my son. Love him as is." The act fractured her marriage temporarily. Richard moved out briefly. Reconciliation therapy resumed, deeper now. Richard admitted bigotry rooted in ignorance. "I was wrong." Apologies flowed, halting but sincere. The court ruled in Miles's favor, awarding his share plus costs. Victory was hollow, relationships scarred. Miles donated part to LGBTQ plus charities, a statement of values. Mark, humbled, sought forgiveness. "I was jealous of your strength." Sarah named her baby after Miles, a gesture of amends. Life normalized in New York. Miles and Jamie adopted a dog, discussed kids. But echoes of trauma lingered. Panic attacks for Miles, trust issues for Jamie. Therapy helped, emphasizing healing's nonlinearity. A family reunion invitation arrived, Richard's olive branch. They attended warily. Conversations flowed easier. Laughs shared. Uncle Bob was absent, disinvited. Richard pulled Miles aside. "I'm proud, son. Took time, but I see now." The moment was cathartic. Tears shed. Yet not all mended perfectly. Subtle biases surfaced occasionally, awkward questions about roles in marriage. Miles addressed them patiently, educating. Society evolved too. Laws protected more, attitudes shifted. But backlash persisted, political rollbacks threatened rights. Miles reflected on the journey. Decisions that cost dearly but yielded growth. Jamie noted, "We paid the price, but look what we gained." The family, once fractured, coalesced around new norms. Years later, Miles looked back on that fateful reunion as the catalyst for transformation. Now in his 40s, he headed a nonprofit advocating for LGBTQ plus family rights, drawing from personal scars. Jamie taught at a progressive school, authoring books on inclusive education. Their adopted son, Eli, brought joy, a testament to resilience. Family ties strengthened, though imperfect. Holidays blended traditions, pride flags alongside Christmas trees. Richard, retired, volunteered at PFLAG meetings, atoning. Evelyn baked for their fundraisers. Mark's business thrived independently. Sarah's family visited often. But the path wasn't without lingering shadows. A political campaign targeting gay adoptions reignited fears. Miles testified in Congress, voice amplified by experience. "Families aren't defined by norms, but by love," he declared. Backlash followed, threats, protests. Jamie worried, "Is it worth the risk?" Miles affirmed, "For Eli's future, yes." Internal conflicts resurfaced during Eli's teenage years. He questioned his identity, mirroring Miles's youth. The family rallied, offering support absent in Miles's past. Richard shared, "I failed you, won't fail him." The cycle broke, healing generations. Yet betrayal's echoes haunted. Uncle Bob's estrangement symbolized irreconcilable divides. Society's progress was uneven. Friends in red states faced regressions. Miles pondered the moral trade-offs. Silence for safety versus voice for change. In quiet evenings, Miles and Jamie discussed the costs. Lost years, emotional tolls. Regrets? Jamie asked. Miles smiled. None. The pain forged us. Their bond, tested and true, endured. The story culminated in a family memoir Miles penned, sparking debates on authenticity versus conformity. Readers argued. Some praised boldness, others decried disruption. Was Miles's bold coming out a heroic stand for truth, or a reckless act that unnecessarily shattered his family's fragile unity?